Hi, and welcome to Drawing with Steffi. Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to color and shade using the brush tool with Paint Tool Side. And as usual, if you'd like to see more of my art and be notified of further videos, I have a Tumblr at Lady Cybercat. I'm also on Twitter with Cybercat Art, and as usual, there is DeviantArt, lady-cybercat.deviantart.com. Also, if you'd like to support my art and have a piece for yourself, for your collection, I have prints available on cybercat.storeenvy.com for about $10 a piece plus shipping. I hope you check that out. So let's get started here. This is a piece I drew a couple years ago. It's just pencils, and I came across it the other day and I thought, oh, this will be great for doing tutorials on. So let me get this to a good spot. And I'm not going to color the whole thing, just enough to show you some of the techniques that we're going to use. If you're not sure what I'm doing with some of the tools, I was only able to capture some of the screen because otherwise it gets really small. So I'm going to save this real quick. Alright, it's always important to save a lot. I'm also going to work on multiple layers. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to set this first layer with the lines to multiply, and I'm going to put a new layer underneath that, and that's what I'm going to be coloring on. The layers in Sci are already transparent, pretty much, so when you color on it, you won't see any white there. Right now I'm using the Rotate tool. It's a really great tool. If you're unfamiliar with some of the tools, you might want to go back and see my earlier demo where I discuss how to use Sci in a broad and general way. Let's see here. Let's start out with a brush. Oh, I'm going to turn this around a little bit better so I can see better. It's important to have it so you see things well. And also, and it's really important when you're coloring to make sure you have the canvas size at a good ratio and size. When you save something to the web, it's only 72 dpi. When I color something, I generally go to 300. So you want even if it is like 72 dpi, if it's big enough, like long ways and tall ways, I think this one was like 3,000 by 2,000 or something like that. Yeah. So you want to make sure it's big enough when you're coloring. So when you zoom in, it won't get pixelated. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So you can zoom in really, really close. And the size of this one is like 8.5 by 11. That's generally what I draw on. This is probably a piece of cardstock. I like drawing on cardstock. When I'm not drawing on the computer, that is. Alrighty, let's see. Let's get started here. I think I'm going to start out with the background. I'm going to just use the bucket tool here. And then I'm going to make another layer. And I'm going to color on top of that. And I'm going to use the brush tool. And I'm going to decide what I'm going to color on first. Let's see. See how when you color over this is why you want to do extra layers. That way, if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to color or to erase it. You can just erase the whole layer or just erase part of it. Layers are your friends, so use them often. Just like saving. Saving is also your friend. I'm going to use the wheel here to pick my color, and I'm going to start out with the background. And again, I'm not going to color this whole thing, just enough to give you some ideas. The brush tool has various different toggles. It has blending, dilution, and persistence. Right now I'm going to zero all those out because I just want it to be a graphic brush. I'm also using just the circle tip, and I'm using the second nib because it's a hard nib, but it's not like super hard. So it has just a little itty bitty bit of a soft edge to it. And I'm just going to color the background here. And I'm not going to worry about overlapping things because when I color it, I'm going to do new layers on top. So this is what we call flatting. This is just one way to do it. You don't have to do it this way, but this is the fast and easy way to color and still be a little bit painterly. And I move my my canvas around a lot because it just makes it easier to reach everything. That's why I really like side, because I know some of the newer versions of Photoshop also have that without it having to think about turning the whole canvas all the way around. But if you don't have a CS version of Photoshop, side is the way to go, especially since it's so inexpensive in comparison. And again, I'm not worrying about the lines being kind of messy here because I'm just going to overlap things anyway. Just going to color in this little part here. And get this behind here. I'm going to turn around some more. Technically, I could use the ink brush or the ink pen for this too, but since I want to focus on just the brush, we're just going to use the brush today. I'll do another tutorial later on other ways to color with the brush, like using the different brush tips. There's some that you can actually see the bristles with. That's really neat. Okay, I'm going to get a slightly lighter blue. And I'm going to start doing in the clouds. It's a little too light, so let me brighten it up a little bit more. There we go. And I'm only going to go through the middle because then I'm going to smear, since this is the smearing tutorial. There's no smudge. I mean, technically you can make a smudge brush, which is kind of like what we're doing, but so we're going to use the dilution because, again, the layer that I'm working on right now has nothing else on it. So technically it's a transparent layer. It's not white. So I'm able to use just the dilution and using the brush. I'm going to lower the density a little bit and bring up the hard and soft. That's the hard and soft, if you saw the other tutorial, is how hard you have to press down on your tablet when you're using it. Again, you do need to have a tablet of some sort to use Psi in this manner. You can't use a mouse. It won't work. And then I'm going to just smear or smudge the lighter blue to make a nice blended appearance. And I think what I'm going to do later is erase some of these lines, but that'll be another tutorial. Because these tutorials have to be kind of short and fast. I try to make them only about half an hour long. Most YouTube videos can only be like 15 minutes, but I'm lucky I get to make them a little bit longer. And I'm just going to play around with the density. You know, sometimes you want it to be lighter, sometimes you want it to be darker. Something else you can do when you're smudging is with the min size, you can make it larger. And here what I'm doing is I'm adding some of the blending toggle in because I'm getting into the blue. If you want to blend one color into another, you have to have the blending toggle on. Otherwise, it doesn't blend any, it just kind of layers on top. I'm just going to smear that a little bit more around the clouds, make it a little bit softer so it's not quite so harsh. There we go. It's looking good. I like it. And, you know, I could come in here with some of the... I guess we're going to start with the green. I'm going to do the trees now. So we're going to reset everything back. And I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to put the brush sensitivity down a little bit because I don't want it to be too soft. And since this is on a new layer, I can be messy again. I don't have to freak out about overlapping things because I'll just come in with the eraser and fix that. I'm going to zoom in so I'm not quite so messy. Zooming in is your friend. Oh, another handy hint, when you're playing with the brush and you're painting around and you need the brush to be bigger or smaller, you can use the hotkeys, the bracket symbols or the hotkeys, just like in Photoshop. It will make the brush size bigger or smaller. I'm really bad about that. I never remember my shortcut keys. And again, you know, I'm painting over the Phoenix here because the Phoenix will be on a different layer. We're not going to do that in this tutorial. I'll do it in the next one. We'll do a different method of shading in that next one. So we're going to make some happy little trees here. This is probably the most time-consuming part since you don't have use of the lasso tool inside like you do in Photoshop. But I kind of find it relaxing and fun to just flatten color. Technically, I could do like the outline of the trees and then use the paint bucket. I mean, there's just all sorts of different ways you can do it. I'm going to clean up my edges a little bit here. We're just going to go in and out and in and out. There we go. And let's see, I'm going to clean up the edge a little bit more because that was kind of messy. Again, I'm not going to worry about the Phoenix because I'm just not going to color that part. I'd like to be able to do a whole painting for you guys, and I think I will in the future, but I'll have to put that on fast paint. When you watch somebody fast paint, it's neat, but you don't really learn a whole lot because you can't really see what they're doing. There we go. Not quite as neat as I could be, but this is just for the tutorial anyway. There we go. Cover up some of my little missing spots there. Erase that. You probably want to be a little bit tighter when you're coloring for real and not just doing a demo. That's looking decent enough. Alright, so I'm going to scroll out, and now, let's see. I'm going to start out with the shadows. So what I'm going to do, because I like working from dark to light, for me that's just easier, so I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to set that layer on top of this layer, and I'm going to set that layer to multiply. And then I'm going to use the same, pretty much the same green, just because that's what I feel like doing today, but I'm going to reduce the opacity of the layer to probably about 75%. I mean, you just have to play around with it. It depends on what colors you're using and how dark you want your shadows to be. And again, I'm just going to use, let's see, the brush tool. And I'm going to use it just on the normal settings. I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to start blocking in my shadows. But I'm not going to completely shade the whole area of shadow that I want because I'm going to then blur or blend or smudge the rest of the shadow in there. See, that's kind of dark, so I'm going to reduce the opacity, and see, that makes it a lot better. And then something else that's important when you're doing your shading is to decide where the main light source is coming from. I'm having it come from my right to my left. And that will make it easier to give everything a 3D appearance. I'm going to have multiple light sources in this, but I usually don't do anything about the second light source until after I've colored it. And then I start adding in those secondary lighting. But for today, to make it easy and simple, I'm just going to have the one light source, which is going to be like the moon, since this is kind of an evening scene. I think later I'll make the phoenixes glow, and that would be my secondary light source, but we're not going to worry about that right now. That starts getting overly complicated. Alright, let's see here. This is where I'm talking about the secondary light source. I had to re-record my my audio over this because somehow I forgot to turn on the mic. Yay! Alrighty, let's get back to coloring here. Getting close to being able to smudge, alright. We'll just fill in the areas where we want it to be darkest. And not being too neat, and then I'm going to turn on the dilution, because again, this is the only thing on this layer, so when there's nothing else on the layer, dilution works really good for smudging. And I'm zoom in a little bit here. And I'm just going to go up back and forth and back and forth, and maybe do little circular motions, and you see how it makes it blend out. It's really nice. Sometimes it can get a little streaky, and ways to get rid of that is to either use less pressure on the brush, or you can change the minimum size. You make the brush bigger. Sometimes you can also make the sensitivity of the tablet less or more. Kind of just have to tweak it until it works the way you need it to. There we go. And once I'm done smearing, I'm actually going to go back over and add some darker shadows to the area. Sometimes I even do multiple layers of shadow. I'll do multiple layers of shadow if I'm coloring more than one area, because I don't want to use green for something that's like yellow colored. Sometimes I'll use just one shadow color, and if that's the case, sometimes I'll use a light purple or a light gray. I don't ever use black for shadow, not unless it's a super dark area, and even then I don't usually. I'm gonna erase some pieces here because we should see the sky coming through right through there. And I just went down to the flat green area to erase that out. Alright, so yeah, sometimes you have to edit on the fly, and that's okay. Alright, there we go. Neaten that up just a bit. Get my original green. And let's see here. I'm going to come back and tighten up some of these areas. Make certain that some of the areas are definitely nice and dark and green. And you can do this like on yet another multiply layer, or you can do it just on that same layer. And I'm going to come back and smudge this out a little bit again, just to soften it up in some places. And I'm making kind of leaf-like designs back here, so I want it to be kind of painterly. You see, I'm starting to smudge it out a little bit because I don't want the areas to be too harsh. Just blurry, just enough. Because sometimes when things get really, really blurry, it just doesn't look good. So it's just something you have to practice with. Art is like sports, you have to practice. Let's see here, I'm going to get a little bit of a blue. And I think I'm going to make another layer. And I'm going to use the blue there. I'm going to reduce the intensity of this layer, so the opacity of this layer, make it a little bit lighter, so the shadows aren't quite as dark. But I definitely want there to be a difference in what's closer to the viewer and what's in shadow. Give it a little bit more depth. And then I'll smear this out a little bit too. We're almost done! Yay! And pretty much, you know, that is how you do this style of coloring. I'm going to do a little bit of highlights though. I won't leave you hanging. Just going to smear this out real quick. There we go. The type of tablet I'm using is a Wacom. I definitely recommend them, but the bamboos work good too. I don't have any experience with the other brands, but they work pretty decent. You could also use this technique technically in Photoshop using the smudge tool. I'm not very good at Photoshop and smudge because I have a really old copy of Photoshop and it doesn't like to blend. But I think you could also use this technique in Open Canvas. Open Canvas works very similar to Paint Tool Sai. There we go. Just darkening this up a little bit more here and there. It's looking good. Something to keep in mind when you're coloring is you don't want it to get too dark because everybody's screen is at a different brightness, so what's really dark on your screen or really light on your screen might be really dark on someone else's. And we're going to save, because saving often is good. Alrighty, so that's pretty decent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add yet another layer on top, and you could technically put that layer to a style like overlay or screen, but I'm just going to use a normal layer. And I'm going to get kind of a yellowy green here. I'm going to choose my original green and then use the color wheel to make it yellower, more yellow. And I'm move it up here. You know, I want it to look good. I don't want it to be a screaming yellow, but I want it to definitely be bright because then I'm going to start smudging it. So sometimes I make it a little brighter than what it seems it should be because I know it's going to get diluted. So I'm going to zoom in here. Again, we're just still using the brush. And I'm going to make some painterly leafy spots. And if you wanted to, you could even make another layer of highlights on top of this. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But since this has to be pretty short, I'm going to just only do a little bit here and there. I'm kind of trying to hurry so I can get all this in there within like half an hour. But when I'm painting for myself, you know, it usually takes me a while longer. So we're just making some leafy-like texture. And I'm still using the medium nib. You could use the softer ones for when you blend, but I like the medium one there. The other ones just get too fuzzy for me. And there we go with the dilution again. Because this is on another layer, it means it's not going to blend into the color below. It's just going to blend it out. It's just like using water when you're watercoloring. Remember those old watercolor books where you just added water to the edge of the color and suddenly color would be everywhere? Same idea. We're just going to blend that out. Keeping in mind again where the light source is supposed to be coming from. and blend, 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 and blend some more. And I'm going to use the water brush here a little bit. And again, I don't want it to have any persistence or blending toggle on it, just dilution. And I'm going to make it fairly soft. And that will help get rid of some of the streakiness a little bit here. But I'm going to take down the density. Sometimes, you know, it's a very strong tool, so it really blends really well. So this will help give it a nice gradation type blending. You can actually color with just the watercolor brush too. It works just like the brush. When you have all the toggles set on 0, it works just like the normal brush. I mean, there are just so many nifty settings and toggles that, you know, you could talk about this forever and learn something new every day. Best thing to do is just play around with all the various toggles. See how I put the dilution down and suddenly now it's painting with green. So I'm going to move back to the brush because it's a little bit easier. And I'm just going to add a little bit more highlights. Sometimes you have to go back and re-emphasize where the lights are. And again, this is just with one light source. If I was painting this for real, I'd come back later with a secondary light source from the Phoenixes. Probably use like a yellow gold color, or maybe a red. But we're just about done here. I want to thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have questions about why I did what I did and why I didn't do what I didn't do, or just, you know, there's something else you would like to learn, please leave me a comment here on YouTube, or you can note me on DeviantArt, or you can just email me at cybercatgraphics@yahoo.com. I love to hear from y'all. Doing this coloring suggestion, or this coloring tutorial was actually a suggestion. People said that they wanted to have more technique tutorials, so you know, I run out of ideas sometimes, so please, you know, let me know what you'd like to see me do in the future. And again, thank you so much for your support. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I've enjoyed doing it. It's always lots of fun to color. I like making art. There we go. Just going to add in a little bit more extra highlights, make it a little bit more textury. There we go. To add some more leaf-like texture in there. Just a little bit here and there. And there we go. We're all done. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Drawing with Steffi. Have a great day.